They told her she was losing her mind, while they were stealing her soul, piece by precious piece. Replacing treasures with trash, expertly crafted lies. Right there in her own home. Imagine that kind of betrayal. It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? I'm Victoria, and the stories I share here, they stick with you. Because they're real, horrifyingly real. Today's story comes from a woman I'll call Elena. She's sharp, incredibly sharp, even now maybe sharper than ever. But for a time they almost convinced her, and everyone else, that she was fadding, confused, incapable. All while committing a breathtakingly cruel crime, driven by greed and envy and something darker too. This isn't just about theft, it's about the calculated destruction of a person, of their identity, their passion, their legacy. You need to hear how Elena, this seemingly quiet woman, this former archivist, fought back. With a fury born of utter violation, and an intellect they disastrously underestimated. Stick with me, subscribe right now, because this is a masterclass in righteous revenge. Elena reached out to me months ago, her voice steady, but with an undercurrent, like tightly coiled steel. She needed to tell someone who would understand the depth of the violation, the sheer audacity of it. She wasn't looking for pity. Oh no, Elena was past pity. She was looking for, perhaps, validation that the fire she unleashed was justified. She told me her story, over several calls, each detail landing like a physical blow. And now I want to share it with you, in her words. Because only she can truly convey the ice and the fire of what happened. Listen, this is Elena's story. My life for 40 years was paper and ink and history. I was an archivist, specializing in rare books and manuscripts. Not just cataloguing, preserving, understanding. My fingers knew the feel of centuries-old vellum, my eyes could spot a clever forgery, a hidden watermark, a subtle inconsistency others missed. It was my passion, my world. My late husband Arthur, he shared that passion. Together we built a collection, not vast, perhaps by billionaire standards, but exquisite, carefully curated, each piece with a story, a soul. First editions, signed copies, unique bindings, manuscripts thought lost. It wasn't about the money, though the value, it grew significantly over the decades. It was about stewardship, preserving these echoes of the past. After Arthur passed, the collection became my solace, my focus, my legacy. We had no children of our own. My closest family was my nephew, Mark, my sister's boy. He grew up visiting our house, surrounded by the books. He seemed interested, or so I thought. He'd ask questions, handle the books carefully, under my watchful eye, of course. He married Chloe, a woman who smiled brightly, but whose eyes, sometimes, seemed calculating. I dismissed it, foolishly, as cynicism born of grief and age. Mark and Chloe, they lived nearby. After Arthur's death, they became more present. Helpful, seemingly attentive. Mark would offer to help with home maintenance. Chloe brought groceries. They'd invite me for dinner. It seemed kind, supportive. Mark often expressed concern about my workload, managing the house, the collection, all alone. Aunt Elena, he'd say, his voice dripping with false solicitude, it's too much for you. Let me help organize things, digitize records, make it easier. I was hesitant. The collection was my domain, my expertise. But I was tired. Sometimes the weight of the house, the memories, it felt heavy. And Mark, he was family. I let him help. That was the beginning, the crack in the dam. He started spending more time in the library, my library, with Chloe often nearby, chatting, making tea, being present. Too present in retrospect. They suggested I get a comprehensive health checkup. Just routine, Auntie, Chloe chirped. Make sure everything's ticking along perfectly. Mark chimed in, especially with all the stress you've been under, losing Uncle Arthur, managing everything. It sounded reasonable, caring. I went to the doctor they recommended, a Dr. Alastair Finch, smooth, reassuring, seemed competent. He ran tests, asked questions, focusing, I now realize, on memory, cognition. Subtle questions, easily misinterpreted if you weren't expecting, deception. Looking back, the signs were there, small inconsistencies, things that felt off. A book slightly out of place, but Mark would have a quick explanation, just dusting Aunt Elena. A comment from Chloe about something I supposedly said, something I had no memory of saying. Oh, Auntie, she'd laugh lightly, your mind's playing tricks today. It was insidious, gradual, like water slowly eroding stone. They began suggesting, gently at first, that perhaps my memory wasn't quite what it used to be. That I was becoming forgetful, confused. They'd find bills I'd supposedly forgotten to pay, appointments I'd missed. All carefully orchestrated, lies built on lies. Dr. Finch's reports, shared with Mark out of concern, hinted at early cognitive decline. Mild, manageable, but needing monitoring and support. Support meaning Mark gaining access, more access. He suggested setting up online banking for me, managing bill payments, just to take the load off Aunt Elena. He helped me draft a new power of attorney, just in case, he said, a formality for emergencies. He guided my hand, as I signed, my vision blurred slightly that day, perhaps the new medication Dr. Finch prescribed. It felt like fog, creeping into the corners of my mind, my life. Was I truly forgetting things? Was I becoming unwell? The doubt, planted so skillfully, began to sprout. Then came the replacements. It started subtly, with less valuable items, perhaps a volume needing rebinding. Mark would take it. He'd bring it back, looking perfect, too perfect. The feel of the paper, subtly wrong, the binding, too new, lacking the patina of age. But I doubted myself, blamed the fog, blamed my agging eyes. Who would suspect such a thing, replacing treasures with fakes? Mark, my sister's son. The idea seemed monstrous, unthinkable. So I pushed the unease away. They grew bolder. A rare Elizabethan manuscript, taken for secure archiving, returned weeks later. It looked right at first glance. But the ink lacked a certain depth, the vellum felt slick. Again, the doubt, the insidious whisper, it's you, Elena, it's your mind. Chloe would constantly reinforce it. Mark works so hard keeping things perfect for you, Auntie. You're lucky to have him. They isolated me, subtly, discouraging visits from old friends. She tires so easily, they'd say. Intercepting calls, managing my correspondence. My world shrank, centered around them, their care, their concern. And Dr. Finch, always ready with a new prescription, a higher dose, citing my increasing confusion, agitation. The fog thickened. They were systematically dismantling my life, my legacy, my very identity. Selling the real books, quietly, through discreet channels, untraceable, they thought. Pocketing millions, while I sat, surrounded by sophisticated forgeries, believing I was losing my mind. The financial aspect, the theft, it was devastating. But the other part, the gaslighting, the medical manipulation, the attempt to erase *me while I was still there, that was the true violation. That was the torture. They thought I was finished, a frail old woman, lost in a cognitive haze, easily managed, easily discarded once they had everything. They underestimated the archivist. They underestimated the fury they were kindling. The turning point, it wasn't dramatic, not a sudden explosion. It was quiet, precise, like clicking a lock tumbler into place. I was in the library, holding a replacement, a beautiful, fake, copy of a 17th century botanical atlas. Mark and Chloe were out, supposedly running errands, for me, of course. The house was quiet, the fog seemed thinner that day, perhaps I hadn't taken the morning pills yet. I ran my fingers over the engraved illustration on the title page. Something felt off. Not just wrong, but specifically wrong. I went to my old workbench, where Arthur and I used to examine acquisitions. My loupe, my magnifying glass, still there, untouched, beneath a layer of dust they hadn't bothered to disturb. I examined the page, closely, meticulously. The paper fibers, too uniform, machine-made precision, not the slight irregularity of period rag paper. The ink, under magnification, sat asterisk on the surface, lacking the subtle bleed, the integration of true iron gall ink. And then I saw it. A tiny watermark, embedded in the paper, visible only under strong transmitted light. A watermark I knew, intimately. It belonged to a specific paper mill, renowned for its high-quality art paper, used for modern limited edition prints. A mill founded in 1982. Not 1682. A cold clarity washed over me, colder than any fear, any grief. The fog didn't just lift, it shattered, instantly. It wasn't me, it was asterisk them. All of it, the forgetfulness, the confusion, the missing appointments, the misplaced items. Dr. Finch, the pills, the diagnoses. The books, my God, the books. It wasn't just one fake, it was likely, many, perhaps, all of the most valuable ones. Replaced systematically, meticulously, fraudulently. The scope of it, the cruelty, the sheer calculated evil, hit me like a physical force. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. Something else took over. Something old and sharp and fiercely protective. The archivist, woken from a drugged slumber. And she was incandescent with rage. But it wasn't a hot rage, not the kind that blinds you. It was cold, diamond-hard, focused. They had tried to erase me, to steal my past, my present, my future. They had violated the sanctuary of my home, my mind, my legacy. They thought they were dealing with a confused old woman. They were about to discover they had awakened a dragon, guarding her hoard. And dragons do not forgive. My first instinct, call the police, expose them immediately. But I paused, the archivist took over. Proof I needed, absolute, undeniable proof. They had been meticulous in their deception. I needed to be meticulous in my retribution. They had gaslit me, used my perceived vulnerability. I needed to use their arrogance, their confidence, against them. And I needed to know the full extent. How many books? Where did they go? Where was the money? And Dr. Finch, his role needed exposure too. This wasn't just theft, it was conspiracy, medical malpractice, elder abuse of the most insidious kind. So I played their game, for a little while longer. I pretended the fog was still there, perhaps even thicker. I feigned confusion, dependence, gratitude for their help. Oh, it tasted like ash in my mouth, but I swallowed it. Inside, I was working, methodically, relentlessly. My mind, freed from the chemical haze, was sharper than ever, fueled by adrenaline and righteous fury. I started my own archive, a secret one, documenting their crimes. First, the books, using my knowledge, my tools, working late at night, when they thought I was asleep. I examined every single valuable book in that library, every manuscript, identifying the forgeries, noting the inconsistencies, the telltale signs of modern reproduction. The paper, the ink, the bindings, the subtle errors in historical detail only an expert would spot. I catalogued each fake, documented its flaws, photographed the evidence with a hidden micro-camera I'd kept from my professional days. Then the originals, where were they? Mark was smart, but arrogant. He probably thought his tracks were covered. But money leaves a trail, especially large sums. I needed access to financial records, communication. They controlled my mail, my phone, my computer, supposedly. But they didn't know everything about this house, about Arthur's old habits. Arthur, bless his cautious soul, had installed a secondary hidden internet line years ago, for secure research, paid for anonymously. They never found it. Late at night, I used Arthur's old disconnected laptop, plugging into that hidden line. I started digging. Mark had used shell corporations, offshore accounts, complex transactions. But he made mistakes, small ones, digital breadcrumbs. An IP address logged during a sensitive transaction, traced back to a device I knew was his. An email Chloe sent to a specialized art dealer, discussing a private consignment, using coded language, but I understood the codes. I hired a private investigator, discreetly, an old contact I trusted implicitly, paid from a small hidden account Arthur and I maintained, funded by cash from a few minor book sales years ago, pocket money they never knew existed. My investigator confirmed the sales, traced the buyers, the amounts, staggering amounts. Millions laundered through layers of deception. And Dr. Finch. I needed proof of his complicity, beyond my own experience. I remembered other patients, in his waiting room, elderly, seeming confused, often accompanied by younger relatives, looking concerned. Was I his only victim, or was this his pattern? My investigator looked into Finch. His finances showed sudden unexplained wealth, coinciding with Mark and Chloe's windfall. He also found records, complaints filed years ago, similar situations, quietly settled, buried. It painted a picture, ugly and damning. I gathered everything, every piece of evidence, every forged document, every financial trace, every medical record I could subtly obtain, every photograph of the fake books. I compiled it meticulously, cross-referenced, annotated. The archivist in me, creating the ultimate finding aid to their destruction. It took weeks of living a lie, smiling at my tormentors, pretending weakness, while meticulously forging the chains that would bind them. The rage simmered, constantly, a cold fire beneath the surface. Every false smile from Chloe, every condescending word from Mark, every unnecessary pill Finch prescribed, it all added fuel to that fire. They were planning a final coup. I could feel it. They started talking about long-term care, a facility that could better meet my needs. Their narrative was shifting, from manageable decline to incapacity. They needed me out of the way, permanently institutionalized, silenced, before their elaborate scam could ever unravel. They even started subtly selling off furniture, smaller antiques, claiming they were donating duplicates or making space, piece by piece, erasing my life. This calculated erasure, this final act of disrespect, it solidified my resolve. Justice wouldn't be enough, it had to be devastating, public, unforgettable. They had attacked my legacy, my passion. So the rare book world, the world they tried to exploit, would be the stage for their downfall. I learned, through my investigator, that Mark and Chloe were planning one last major sale. The crown jewel of my collection, a unique illuminated medieval manuscript, believed to be the only surviving copy. Its value was immense, almost incalculable to the right collector. They had found a buyer, through a prestigious London auction house, known for handling the rarest items. The auction was high profile, attracting wealthy collectors, academics, museum curators, the press. It was perfect. My plan formed, audacious, complex, theatrical. A performance worthy of the lies they had spun. I contacted the auction house, not as Elena Vance, the supposed invalid, but as Dr. Elena Vance, respected archivist, consultant on manuscript provenance, using my old professional credentials Mark and Chloe likely thought were long forgotten or irrelevant. I offered my services, pro bono, to authenticate certain items in their upcoming auction, citing a special interest in the period, focusing particularly on the section containing my manuscript. Their arrogance was my ally. They were so confident in the forgery's quality, so sure I was incapacitated, they wouldn't anticipate scrutiny from me. The auction house, eager for renowned expertise, agreed immediately. I arranged, through my investigator and a trusted legal team now waiting in the wings, for certain people to be present at that auction. Key figures from the rare book community, academics who knew my work, journalists I discreetly tipped off about a potential major story regarding provenance and fraud. And plainclothes police officers, briefed, holding copies of my evidence, waiting for my signal. The day of the auction arrived. Mark and Chloe were there, basking in the reflected glory of the manuscript, schmoozing with potential buyers, playing the role of sophisticated inheritors, managing their dear aunt's legacy. They saw me arrive, seated discreetly in the expert section. I saw the flicker of surprise, then dismissal, in Mark's eyes. Poor Aunt Elena, having a brief moment of lucidity, probably doesn't even know where she is. Chloe shot me a tight, condescending smile. They had no idea. The auction proceeded, item after item, the tension building. Then it was time, lot 147, the illuminated manuscript. The auctioneer presented it, glowing descriptions, emphasizing its rarity, its beauty, its impeccable provenance, traced back through my family, citing Mark as the current steward. Bidding started, high, climbing rapidly. Mark and Chloe looked ecstatic, triumphant, exchanging smug glances. This was it, the final payday, the culmination of their monstrous plan. Just as the bidding reached a fever pitch, I stood up. A hush fell, all eyes turned to me. I walked calmly, deliberately, towards the stage. Mark hissed, "Aunt Elena, sit down, you're confused." Chloe tried to intercept me. "Auntie dear, let's get you some water." I ignored them, my eyes were fixed on the auctioneer. "Excuse me," I said, my voice clear, steady, amplified by the microphone I calmly took from the podium. "There seems to be a significant error regarding the provenance and authenticity of lot 147. Gasps rippled through the room. Mark's face went white, Chloe looked frozen, panicked. "I am Dr. Elena Vance," I continued, my voice resonating with decades of authority they thought they had silenced, the purported source of this manuscript's provenance, and I can state, unequivocally, that the item presented here is a forgery. Chaos erupted, shouting, confusion, cameras flashing. "This is nonsense," Mark blustered. "My aunt is unwell, she's deeply confused. Someone help her." "Unwell," I echoed, turning to face him, the cold fury finally unleashed, or inconveniently lucid. "I have spent the last several weeks meticulously documenting the systematic replacement of my rare book collection, including this manuscript, with sophisticated forgeries, orchestrated by my nephew, Mark, and his wife, Chloe." I gestured towards a screen technician I had prearranged. "Display file sequence, Alpha." On the large screens behind the auctioneer, images appeared. Close-ups of the manuscript, side-by-side comparisons with archived photos of the original, highlighting the discrepancies, the modern pigments, the artificial agging, the incorrect stylistic details. "This forgery," I stated coldly, "while skillful, contains numerous errors only visible to an expert eye, an eye they believed was clouded by dementia, induced by medication prescribed by their accomplice, Dr. Alastair Finch." Maury gasps, Finch's name hung in the air. "Display file sequence, Beta." Financial records appeared, transaction trails, shell corporations, offshore accounts, emails between Mark, Chloe, and various dealers, discussing the sale of the asterisk real books, my books. They have stolen and sold millions of pounds worth of irreplaceable cultural heritage, my life's work, my husband's legacy, all while systematically gaslighting me, isolating me, and attempting to have me declared legally incompetent. Mark lunged towards the stage, shouting denials, incoherent rage. Chloe stood paralyzed, her mask of composure shattered, revealing raw terror. "Display file sequence, Gamma." Medical reports, showing the escalating dosages, Finch's falsified notes, contrasting with independent tests I had secretly undertaken, proving my cognitive health was perfectly fine once I stopped taking Finch's medication. "The evidence is comprehensive, meticulously compiled, and has been provided to the authorities." I nodded towards the back of the room. The plainclothes officers stepped forward, identifying themselves, moving towards a stunned Mark and a sobbing Chloe. "Mark, Chloe," I said, my voice devoid of heat now, just icy finality. "You tried to erase my history. Instead, you have secured your own, infamous, place in it." The room was silent, stunned, witnessing the implosion. Mark and Chloe were escorted out, protesting, struggling, their world collapsing around them, live, in front of the very audience they sought to impress. The auctioneer, pale and shaken, officially withdrew the lot. I stood there for a moment, breathing. The archivist, the dragon, had won. It wasn't just about reclaiming the money, though my lawyers would pursue that relentlessly, freezing assets, clawing back every penny. It was about reclaiming me, my mind, my reputation, my life. It was about the truth, unleashed like a weapon. The aftermath was swift and brutal, just as I intended. Mark and Chloe faced a barrage of charges: fraud, theft, conspiracy, elder abuse, forgery, money laundering. Their meticulously constructed lives vanished. The trial was a sensation, my evidence overwhelming, irrefutable, the archivist's revenge served cold, and documented in triplicate. They received significant prison sentences, their reputations utterly destroyed, social pariahs, cautionary tales. Dr. Finch faced his own reckoning, loss of license, criminal charges, financial ruin. His other potential victims, encouraged by my case, began to come forward. Recovering the actual books was harder, some were traced, recovered through legal battles, others had vanished into private collections, perhaps lost forever. But the money seized from Mark and Chloe, and a substantial settlement from Finch, allowed me to establish a foundation dedicated to protecting vulnerable collectors, funding research into forgery detection, providing resources for victims of elder exploitation. My legacy redefined not just by the books I loved, but by the fight I won. Life is different now, quieter, perhaps, but clearer. The fog is gone, replaced by a sharp awareness, a wariness. Trust is a currency I spend far more carefully. But the fire, the righteous fury that saved me, it didn't consume me. It forged me into something stronger, harder. I still live in my house, surrounded by the books that remain, the authentic ones, and yes, even the forgeries, kept as a reminder. A reminder of the depths of betrayal and the heights of resilience. Sometimes late at night, in the quiet library, I think about Mark and Chloe. Not with pity, never pity, but with a cold satisfaction. They tried to bury me. They didn't know I was a seed. Wow. Just wow. Elena's story, it leaves you breathless, doesn't it? The sheer calculation, the cruelty, replacing her passion with fakes while trying to convince her she was crazy. It's monstrous, truly. And Dr. Finch using his position of trust, sickening. But Elena, her strength, her mind, the way she turned her archivist skills, her meticulous nature, into weapons. Using their own arrogance, their own careful planning, against them. The auction house scene, can you imagine? The drama, the public exposure, the utter devastation she unleashed. It's intense, I know. Some might say her response was harsh, ruthless even. But after what they did, stealing not just her property, but attempting to steal her sanity, her very self. Was it justice, or was it revenge? Maybe, sometimes, they're the same thing. Especially when fueled by such profound, justifiable rage. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about trust, about family, about the hidden strengths we possess, even when others try to diminish us. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Could you have done what Elena did? This story is a powerful reminder. Never underestimate the quiet ones, never assume frailty means weakness. And never, ever mess with an archivist's collection or her mind. If stories like Elena's resonate with you, if you believe in the power of truth and the necessity of fighting back, then please, subscribe to the channel, share this video. You never know who might need to hear that resilience comes in many forms, and that justice, however harsh, is worth fighting for. Thanks for listening. I'm Victoria, and I'll be back soon with another unforgettable story.